Hey guys, I thought it was timely to do an updated product tour. It's been 1 year since we've launched and a lot of cool and exciting things have happened. We've been releasing features monthly and I thought it'd be cool to show you around. So what you're looking at here is what we would call the top sheet of a budget. It usually has the top level categories that you're looking for, and everything should work and feel like a spreadsheet. You can copy and paste, you can double click to edit, drag and drop. It feels very similar. Where it's different is instead of sheets based, we're accounts based. And all that means is instead of going to a tab, you can actually just click right into a cell here and it will take you to that. I can navigate around pretty easily by just clicking through the browser here, or I can actually use my keyboard, and this is fully keyboard navigatable as well, where you can actually just hit Command down and you can go left to right, and you can just quickly browse through all the different accounts that we have. Another way to quickly get around is you can hit Command K or the search button, and you can go into any account and it'll take you right to it. So it's just a great way to move quickly around your budget. We are inside of an account right now that you can see Prep Crew. For those that are familiar, we're using the AICP template. Saturation has dozens of templates from different industry standards to tax credits. If you're familiar, this is the AICP template. That's great for commercials, but you can use it for films, short films, whatever. So what you're looking at here, if we go from left to right, we have kind of a standard set of columns here. We have the account IDs. These can be called line numbers or account numbers or account IDs. It's kind of interchangeable, so don't get tripped up by the names. This is just a unique identifier, no matter if the descriptions are similar or not. A unique ID kind of keeps it all separate. You have your descriptions here. Edit the template however you want. You're not locked into anything here, so you can change things around. Again, copy and paste and so on. This typically is describing what the role or the cost is for that item. One thing that we have also is a contact management system inside of Saturation. So I can actually click and search for contacts, but I can also pull open a contact and see high-level information. This is kind of, think of it as a CRM inside of Saturation for you to manage your contacts. So you can add things like the type of contact it is. You can add a job title, email, and the cool thing is this is actually all accessible, and you can actually click it and it'll take you right to your email. You can add phone numbers to this, and then you can fill in all the different details here. You can also attach people to projects. So since we're already in a project, this is how it would attach to this project. And you can also add payment details such as ACH information. You can add attachments like W-9s or crew contact information, payroll information, headshots, you name it. All right. The next column here that we have is the Fringes column. Fringes are essentially the additional costs that might be associated with a line item. It's typically in two categories. The first is union fringes. This could be if you're working with unions like SAG or IATSE or anything like that. They may have extra fees that it requires, like pension and health. That could be sometimes 15, 20% of a line. So it's an easy way to associate that to a line item. And the non-union fringes are things like taxes and payroll costs. We have a pretty comprehensive way to do this where you can create custom fringes and you can add this to a project and use it to identify different rates. I can choose the color. I can create a short code or a name to it, a fuller description if you need to. And then you can add what the percentage or the rate is of the particular fringe. And we have the ability to do both at a percent or a flat. And in some cases, there might be a cutoff to how much you have to pay. And so you can enter the max amount of fringes you would pay for a line item there. You can see here, I can easily just search for fringes and quickly add them here. We're kind of entering into what we consider the main columns to do calculations. And so as you can see here, this one is highlighted green. What that just means is that all of these numbers affect this estimate column right here. Now, phases are something that we've introduced as the ability to create different scenarios or versions, and you can have multiple of these phases. And I'll get back to phases in a second, but just so you can see what it looks like inside of a phase, you can do certain things like change the quantity, unit, and rate. Just like a normal spreadsheet, I can change numbers around and it'll automatically update in my total column here. And that's pretty straightforward and should work as expected. Where you can build on top of this is you can then add a multiplier. If you had, in this case, 2 first ACs working at, let's just say $500, you could add in another 2 here, and then it'll multiply on top of that. We also have an overtime calculator here. This allows you to calculate overtime fairly quickly so you can see how much you might be going over in a day. And how this works is we give you the ability to put in the amount of overtime hours. You can choose what that day rate is based on. So if this 500 is based on 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever it might be, you can adjust that here. And then you can choose where overtime starts. Typically with overtime, you are in a couple different buckets. You're either in time and a half, double time, and you can see here, what I can do is I can move this around and it'll kind of set where these calculations can start. Different states and cities might have different overtime laws, so you're able to adjust this on the fly and be able to change it for wherever laws you're trying to respect or what you've also negotiated with the individual. So you can change this around and it will update the calculation accordingly. Another thing with number columns is we have something called globals or variables. Variables are essentially the ability to change multiple line items at once. The example here is, let's just say, you're needing to change the amount of days for the whole shoot, and you don't want to go in and change every single line item individually. So what you could do is create a global and enter a variable for this. So if you go to our globals here, what we were just affecting was total days. And so this is customizable. You can make them whatever you want. So I've made a couple here and I've named this one TD for total days. And let's just say that this is going from 13 days to 10 days. You'll notice that anywhere where TD is referenced is now changing from 13 to 10. And the numbers and everything will recalculate accordingly. So it's just a quick and easy way to change numbers around. You can use equals to put in a global or variable in any number column here. And so this works for quantity, rate, multiplier, anywhere that you can put in a number. Another way that you can budget is with dates. So this is just a quick, easy way to be able to do a subtle version of scheduling where I can change these numbers here and it'll automatically update the day field. And then as I change this, the quantity field will actually update accordingly. Everything I showed you so far is all relational to this total column here, which I've called estimate. You can kind of see that with this green highlight over all of it to show that it's connected to this. Now, what we call this total grouping of columns is called a phase. A phase can be created to represent different scenarios. You might have an estimate working an actual. You might have a comparison between Los Angeles versus New York. And the beauty of it is that you can create multiple phases. I can create unlimited phases inside of saturation. So let's just say on top of my estimated and working, I want to create a committed phase. So what I can do here is copy from an initial phase and it will duplicate over, and I can now edit these numbers around and change it to whatever I want it to be. And it helps you just see them side by side to easily compare and not have to do multiple spreadsheets or budgets or anything like that. You can keep it in one place. You can use phases for versioning, for scenarios. It's kind of up to you on how you want to use phases. Other options for phases as well is you have the ability to lock a phase. So in this case, let's just say I wanted to lock my bid or my estimate. I can lock this. And then now if I'm an admin in my budget, nobody else can touch this. Other things you can do with phases is you can also set the currency of a phase. So let's just say that I am working in another country. I can change this to the yen if I'm shooting in Japan. And then you can look up whatever the conversion rate is and put that here, and it'll automatically convert to whatever that local currency is. So it's just a great way for if you're doing scenarios in multiple countries, or if you're working in a different country altogether, you can make that your default currency. If we go back to the top sheet, you can actually see just a condensed version of phases. So you can always collapse or expand a phase as you need it. And you can see here, I've collapsed all my phases just so that you can only see the totals here. So it makes sense on my top sheet. Another way that you can expand a budget is our line items and accounts. And so you can see the difference between them by seeing the blue highlight here, and then the white ones are regular line items. Now you can convert any line item into an account. This is great for when you want to keep your account structure and you have a lot more details you want to put. I can expand any one of these and create them into an account. So I'll expand this line producer one. Most of the information copies over here if you had numbers on the top there. And so now I can split this up as, let's just say my line producer has different phases, or, so he's a part of line producer pre-production, line producer production, and let's just say it's wrap. And so now I can break out this person's cost by the various days that they may be working. Let's just say that they're working 2 days at 800 here, 1 day here at 1000. And again, during wrap, it took another day. And I did that at 800 as well. Now you have a more flushed out budget. If I go back to Prep Crew, I can now see that this is turned into an account, and it will not let me edit the numbers at this top level anymore. Now that it's an account, you can only edit it at this level. Saturation is a collaborative-based budgeting tool where you can share this with different collaborators, with your line producers, your production managers, your EPs, department heads. We really wanted to solve the issues with traditional means of sharing, which is usually access and concerns around breaking things like formulas. We've solved the safety part by being able to lock columns. So if you invite somebody, they won't be able to edit specific columns. And then as far as access goes, we've created something called share views. You have different role access here where you could invite somebody to be a view only, a comment only, an editor, or an admin. And just to show you what comments look like, you're able to communicate right from the budget. I can tag people inside of here. I can also tag accounts. Let's just say that this is meals and say we need more budget here. And then I can post this, and you can see here that it'll take me right to the account, and it will notify all the people that I've communicated with. And it's just a great way to share it. Now, other ways that we have sharing is we have the ability to also create different views. Share views is this idea of being able to selectively give access to different people that traditionally couldn't. You would have to make different budgets to give different people access. What we can do here is create a view for, let's say, a department. In this case, I have one here for my art department. I can name this view. I can select the category and accounts that I want to share with them. Here I have shared my props, my art department labor, and my art department expenses. I can even choose the phase. So let's just say that you don't want the original bid or estimate or budget to be shared, but you created a new phase called working, and that's where all your department heads or whoever you share it with can look and see And I've also shared my actuals here, which I'll show you actuals in a second. Now, if I look at this, I can hit preview. I can send this by a link or by email. This is all that person would see. So what's cool about this is if I give edit access to this, that person can fully edit everything inside of here and you will see everything that they're doing, but they can only see you in this part of the budget. So it's a great way to invite more people part of the process if you have them working and creating sub-budgets, or if they're helping you actualize in certain categories. It's a great way to collaborate. Other examples of share views, I can make a client view or an EP view where I can just share the top sheet. So the example here, I've created a top sheet, chosen to create the initial estimate phase, and certain columns that I want a part of it. And if I preview this, essentially this is what the person would see. They can't access the rest of the budget. So hundreds, if not thousands of ways you can customize this for different collaborators. Another feature that we have is something called tags. You can actually turn on and off columns if there's certain ones you're not using, but I'll open my tags one here, and the great thing is I can use tags as a better way to keep organized. So I have some different ones here. Let's just say I have some LA costs, and let's just say a couple of them are my New York ones as well. And some might have both LA and New York for whatever reason. Now I can select that tag and filter it, and then it will only show me the values of that particular tag. This is great for if you're tagging tax credits or locations. I would even say internal costs versus external costs. Oh, and I see here that my collaborator has joined me. You can go to where they are and see what they're looking at as well. If I untag my tags here, we're back to my normal view. Another way you can share the budget is you can export as a PDF. And so I'll click this here. The great thing about export PDF is it's fully customizable. You can change styling, you can add rows, you can add sections to this, you can even add images. So you can really customize this however you want, and as well as the budget itself. So if there's certain information you want to include or exclude, there is hundreds of different ways to also choose this. So I can choose different things like my phases, or I can choose different accounts or columns. So you can really make this as detailed or not as you want. And you can export this as a PDF, download it, choose portrait or landscape. We have a note section here as well that goes at the bottom of the top sheet. And you can also, when you're done, save this as a preset and then choose this for future types of projects that you might have. Different ways to generate different types of reports, whether you're generating a budget, a cost report, an actuals detail, an invoice even. You could change it to however you want. The other thing that we have is support for emojis. You can right click and set your icons and emojis to any line item. Some other smaller things, you can add subtotals, and you can create multiple subtotals and it'll automatically update. And you can also move things around, and basically subtotals total of everything above it until it hits another subtotal or to the top of the budget. So you can have unlimited of these on any of the tables, and you can delete it. You can move these line items around as well. Another type of line item that we have is the ability to create markups. And markups are any kind of additional percentage-based costs that you want to add to a budget. So here I've created a couple, like a contingency, and I can come over here and change the percentage. So let's just say this would be 10% and it'll automatically update. I can also change this to a flat if I wanted to. I can even, if I come over here, choose which accounts are selected. So if I, for whatever reason, couldn't mark up everything, I could select which ones are included into that and it'll only select those. The next section I'd like to take you into is our actuals. Our actuals is the process of being able to put in real costs like invoices and receipts. You can actually go right to any category and enter actuals that way, and it'll show you a filtered view of those actuals for that specific category. Otherwise, you can go to the actuals log here. It gives you access to everything, and you can see all the actuals no matter what category they're a part of. What you're looking at here is the transaction name. I can choose the category, and that's just by searching for it. I can also drag and drop invoices or receipts right into here. If I drag a file here, it'll upload right into that particular cell, and then I can always preview it and see everything right here. So just like a great way to keep it all in one place. You don't need a Google Drive or a Dropbox or something like that. Now, this is a very manual and tedious process, and it's something that we've wanted to innovate and create a better way to do so. So another way that you can do it inside of saturation is through our transactions tab. You can do this by adding a source, typically either a bank account or a credit card. You can log into your bank account, link that here, and then all of your transactions will come up automatically. The beauty of this is not have to manually type everything out, and everything shows up here. So you can see here that I have this Tesla charge here. And so I can search for my Tesla charges, and I can click on all of them, assuming that they're all for the same category, and I can bulk edit the transactions. And so now I can search picture vehicles. Let's go with that. And I can also automatically import this into actuals. And so now if I click on this, boom, within seconds, you've now masked some of these transactions. So those typically will show up here at the bottom of the actuals here. And you can see here, it's just auto-filled everything that you need in here. And now if I go to picture vehicles, you can see here that I have a handful of these actualized. Another thing that you can do as well is you can split actuals. And the idea behind this is that you can then split all the line items of an invoice or a receipt or a payroll. And so in the example of the line producer one that we were just doing, let's just say that I split this actual. You can see here that it has all my top level information about the transaction. And now I can split this into, let's do it the same way, prep. I think we called it shoot and wrap. I know those descriptions were slightly different. And then here I can be as detailed as I want, but let's just say I want to separate this into that this was 3,000. And then you can see here that it's alerting me that the initial total that was placed here was 8,000. So it's giving me an understanding of how much I am off by. And so I can put another 2,000 here. And then let's just put 3,000 here. And now I am back to my 8,000. And I can choose the category. And then let's just say there was also a kit fee here. The reason for this is that you're able to separate them out into different categories, not just the one. If I go back up to here, you can see here that this has now split, and it's now changed and reflected the amount. And it's also tagged multiple categories instead of just the one category. So it's just a great way to be expansive in that. Thank you so much for joining me for the overview of the budgeting of saturation. Stay tuned for more videos where we show you other areas of saturation outside of budgeting. Later.